And so my reflections always start with asking, where are we as a country? Where exactly are we? And when you wrestle with the question of where we are, there is no way in which you can escape the corollary question posed by that martial artist, Bruce Lee. Wrote a very beautiful poem titled, Who Am I? Bruce Lee. And you know him as that actor in those old martial arts movies. He was also holder of a degree in philosophy. Brilliant thinker that Bruce Lee was. And this poem appears in two pieces of literature that I saw way back. One is called The Letters of the Dragon. And if you look at Letters of the Dragon, the poem is at pages 115 to 117. And in the other book is The Tao of Bruce Lee. That one I read way back. I've forgotten the page. But in that poem, he asks the question, who am I? I'm tying it to the question, where are we as a country? You know, I shouldn't teach you, and I will not. I'll merely remind you. We have relied on a single commodity. We've been a monosectoral economy for a very long time. We still are in a great many respects. We are now called upon to diversify under pressure of calamity. This is the reality. This is where we are. We have neglected many areas of growth and development. Agriculture, manufacturing, processing, value addition. Even in the financial space, we've at best been lethargic, unresponsive. We have to change this. All of us. And I'm certain that in the main we have the skills, the zeal, and the passion to do it. You folks are well trained. You went to some of the best schools on the face of the earth. It was a huge investment. The country invested in you. That unnumbered throng of people out at the margins of this economy, in the underbelly of this society, those down in the dump catching hell, those are the people who made the sacrifice for you to go to school, to the schools that you went to. You owe them more than a debt of gratitude. You owe them a debt sounding in money, in resources to transform their lives. We all do. And so when we examine at the end of our journey, when we are nearing tomb, we need to have answered the question, what kind of human beings were we to the people that gave so much of themselves to make us who and what we are? What have we done for those poor people? What is it that drives you, that wakes you up in the morning or in the middle of the night? What do you think about? What happens in the deepest recesses of your soul? What do you think about? Is it about yourself? About self-advancement, self-enrichment, self-aggrandizement, receive praises and commendations? You are the best professional, the best financial expert. What does it mean to that person on the downside? This is the real question. We deal with we must always remember those creatures of flesh and blood out there and do what we do with them at the forefront of every decision, every action. And so this economy needs to be transformed very quickly, transformed radically. So it needs a revolution. And a revolution, Perry Anderson tells us, is an episode of convulsive political transformation compressed in time and concentrated in target. It doesn't go on inordinately. It has a very limited time frame. And we must identify the targets so that we craft together a vision, which is what BDC has done. Crafted a vision. And the vision speaks to not where we are, it is an appreciation, an interrogation and critique of where we are. But it also speaks most evocatively to where we ought to be. The gap, the chasm between the is and the ought. We need to construct a bridge. We need to construct a passage from the is to the ought, where we are, who we are, to where we ought to be and who we ought to be as a people, as a country, as a society. And this bridge is a function of strategy to move us from where we are to where we ought to be. There was some prescience, it appears to me, back in 1970 with the establishment of BDC. There was some sagacity, some far-sightedness by individuals back then who felt that they had to bring into existence an entity, a vehicle, an institution that would aid the process of taking the country where it was then to where they believed it ought to be. BDC was created, fashioned as a vehicle to achieve some ideal, some vision. And Frederick Douglass tells us a vision is not self-executing. It needs agency, human agents, institutional agents. So BDC is one of the institutions that were created to drive the country from where it was, where it pretty much still is, by the way, to where it ought to be. We need to be very honest about these realities. We need to confront them not with some ebullient self-flattery. No, we need to be brutally honest about our flaws, our defects, our failings, and the manner in which we've dealt with the realities that confront us. The better for us then to move to where we ought to be. And so BDC stepped back, reflected on itself in order to step up and play the role that it ought reasonably to play. And that we applaud. We thank those who came and those who now are at the helm. The expectations on you are exacting. They are very serious. Consistent with the challenges that the country is facing. So when we breathe down your necks, please understand, the masses out there are breathing down mine, and I dare not disappoint them. We dare not disappoint them. We would have failed as professionals, as people who've been trained, if we disappoint those who sacrifice so much for us. So we have crafted, or we're in the process of developing the Botswana Economic Transformation Program, which demands of us breakneck speed and agility. We're not going to do things today or tomorrow. We're going to do them yesterday. When I was sitting with Sheikh Al-Mansour, and I indicated to those that I was talking to at the time that I like things to be done yesterday, he said, I'm worse than you. I want them to be done last month. So you can see how urgent the situation is for both us and our friends, our investors. And they were exceptionally impressed with the country and what they saw. They tell me that their architect did not sleep last night designing structures and even homes for them here. That's how impressed they were. And so they are in with you, with us, for the long haul. We are confident that BDC, as the vehicle that will execute under this arrangement, is up to the task. The Minister, the Permanent Secretary, yourselves, everybody else, I have full faith and confidence in all of you. So you will deliver. And so the way you approach your work will define who we are. And Bruce Lee says, when he deals with the question, who am I? Asks, am I master of all I survey, or an ineffectual pygmy? The doubters said, men can't fly. The doers said, maybe, but we'll try. And off they went into the morning glow, while the doubters sat watching from down below. Bruce Lee, that's not me. And so we need to define who we are, so that we get ourselves from these cloying circumstances of where the country is and where we all are, so that we can now move with confidence to where we ought to be. I've said, I say it again, finance is a bad master. Finance, left to its own devices, finance for its own sake is actually dangerous. It can be predatory, it can be exploitative. But finance deployed for the agenda of development can become a very good servant, a servant of development. So we need to mobilize and deploy finance for the agenda of development in our country. And in order to do this, we need to change the way things have been done. We need to move away from worshipping, fetishizing things as they are, and seeking to maintain them as we find them. We need to change the institutions themselves, adapt them so that they enable us to move and move speedily to where we ought to be. It's a revolution. I said, it is compressed in time. The time I have set for myself, and I hope for yourselves too, is 3 years. This country must look spectacularly different within the next 3 years. And it must be concentrated in target. We need to identify what it is we want to achieve in these 3 years. And if you look at it and you think you can achieve it with your eyes closed, then don't even waste your time on it. Try that which others would describe as impossible. Impossible when viewed through the prism of the current institutional repertory, where things aren't working, where there's an institutional malfunction, a dysfunctionality across the board. Government is dysfunctional. Let's be very clear and upfront about it. Government is a very large machinery, often unwieldy, unresponsive, lacking in agility. You need to inject some vitality, breathe some life into this unwieldy apparatus called government. We need to change it. Those who are within can actually get co-opted and sucked in and fail to see. Those who are outside sometimes are the better placed. From a position of strategic positionality, you can see angles that we probably may not be able to see from within. But happily for me, I'm both an insider and an angry outsider, so I can see from many different angles. But that may not be enough. I need your vision too. Need you to infuse your ideas, your thoughts into how things must go. We're going to have to change the laws. See, there's a lot of complaint out there bringing law reform on urgency. Yes, we have to do it. It has to be done. It has to be done unapologetically. We're not going to succeed if we are going to cling to the very same practices, same provisions of laws that have held us back. We're going to have to change them, and change them quickly. And so where it becomes necessary to proceed on urgency, we're going to do it. We're going to have to change the laws. And lawmaking is one of the easiest things, really. Because what you simply do, you sit and you imagine, what is it that you want to see? You don't need a law degree to do that. You don't need to understand any provision of any law. You just need to know what you think is best in the circumstances. What would work for this country? How would we need to do things for us to move at the speed that we desire? All of us. And it is best when it is expressed by those who have absolutely no connection with the law. Craft the vision. Understand the end game. Because lawmaking is at the heart of it about 4 things I want you to know so that you can make laws yourselves. The first thing you do is you look at the circumstances now. What obtains now as we speak in relation to anything, whatever you are concerned about? What obtains now? Then you say, which is the second, what is the problem with the present circumstances? When you do that, lawyers say you're trying to identify the mischief. What is the mischief that is crying out for remediation, for correction, for amendment of the law, for a change in the law, for an enactment of a different law. What is the problem? That's the second stage. The third is then to bring the solution forward. What is the answer to this problem that you've identified? One, what is the situation? Before you do anything, what obtains? Two, what is the problem with this state of affairs? Three, what is the answer to the problems that I have identified? And the fourth is, now, when you implement and you monitor and you examine whether these answers are properly tailored for resolving the problems that you were dealing with. 4 stages. Simple, straightforward. No lawyer can trick you when you know these basic rudimentary principles. And they were laid down as far back as 1871, I think it was, in an old case called Hayden, the rule in Hayden's case. That's what it is. 4 basic questions. You must know them always. When a lawyer comes to you, anybody comes to you and says, let's change the law, must pause, break it down into this 4-node grid. What obtains? What is the problem with this? What is the answer that I propose? Does this answer work to resolve the problem? And so a lot of debate, and you'll see across society, time is wasted on frivolity and trivia. People can describe problems, sometimes even inaccurately. There's gender-based violence. Okay, there is. We all agree. We approach it with a sense of dread and anxiety, gender-based violence. Somebody comes with something like, this is a solution. What is the solution, ma'am? You must deploy peace officers at the magistrate court. Oh, wow. What is the problem again? Gender-based violence. What is gender-based violence? Somebody has been assaulted, either physically or emotionally. They've been assaulted. They're bleeding. They're bruised. They're battered. Some may even have lost their lives. And what is the solution you are proposing? Deploy a peace officer at the magistrate court. That's an intellectual intervention so formidable that it deserves to be debated on the floor of Parliament for days on end. You see, we're chasing red herrings. Where do we go to resolve these things? In the family, in the private estuaries. This is where this thing takes place. How do we police the private, the most intimate of spaces? So we're going to where the problem doesn't originate. We want to solve it there. We are misfiring terribly in the name of being lawyers and intellectuals and sophisticated thinkers. No. Many of us suffer from intellectual bipolarity, it seems to me, because how do you even suggest this? But we do this in so many areas because we are not incisive in tackling what exactly is the problem. What are the facts? Data. BDC must have engaged with a lot of data to craft the approach that they've come up with. Data. Somebody who has had absolutely no engagement with the data may offer some scathing critique in the pages of some newspaper or even on social media. And we are supposed to engage and waste time dealing with such. So we who are here carry a heavy responsibility of engaging with real data, taking decisions informed by data, not scattershots, not sentimentality, data. And we deploy this data to examine the situation and craft solutions. Solutions that have their eye on the people we serve. And so BDC has stepped up to offer us a platform for the realization of economic transformation, the mobilization and deployment of finance for development, for a good cause. And to them I say, yes, you can do well while doing good. So you have deployed your skills and your services for a good cause, then you will do well in terms of realizing the returns that you seek to attain. And I'm here to encourage, to thank BDC, but also to say to you, along the same lines that we have BDC with Al Mansour Holdings, we have another very formidable agreement with the Sovereign Wealth Fund of Oman. Formidable. A partnership that straddles the whole gamut of sectors. And they are ready. Soon, another will take BDC or whichever other entity on this trip to Oman to concretize this agreement and to draw finance into our country, foreign direct investment. It requires of us efficiency. Some of it is efficiency seeking FDI. Market seeking FDI will require of us world-class infrastructure, trade corridors that enable goods to move and move quickly to where they are sought. And so we are going to have to invest in the development of infrastructure. And the resources that we are mobilizing should position us to develop world-class infrastructure. There are folks that want to develop world-class convention centers here. We will be discussing with one of them. They are ready to move in. Redico Loti knows, and I can also attest, that I've woken him up in the middle of the night and said to him, we need land, brother. Where is it? Where can we get land to give to these investors so that if they are bluffing, we call their bluff quickly and we move on? And he's been able to answer and say to me, we have 4 pieces of land of these measurements readily available. And the next day, he's been able to take those investors to the different places so they make their pick. And he's facilitated. He stands ready to facilitate. He's always ready. The Ministry of Trade and Entrepreneurship is, in my view, the engine of the economy. Others think it's the Ministry of Finance. Finance, they know how to count and account. When it comes to generating that which they must now count and account for, they are somewhat challenged, or it's not their call. So we now place that responsibility on the shoulders of the Minister of Trade and Entrepreneurship to power the economy. And that now implicates all of you. You are going to power this economy. We are going to drag you kicking and screaming as willing or unwilling hostages. We are enlisting you in this revival of our economy and our society. And we have very able people. I have said already that I have full faith and confidence in all of you. Where government is sluggish, let us know so that we change on the trot. We facilitate and make sure you get all the assistance from government that you need. This economic transformation program says when an investor comes, we do what they do in Egypt. You sit there, one room, everybody who has to do with this project must be there. When you leave that place, you need to be at a point where you've assessed, you've said, no, it can't work, or yes, it can work, please start tomorrow. That's what we want. No delays, no time wasting, no frustration going from office to office and finding people sleepwalking. Government itself has to wake up. Everybody has to play their part. And you, as quasi-private sector or out-and-out private sector, are going to help us and shake government from its own slumber and sleepwalking. So thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you to BDC. We have a health crisis in our hands. I think BDC will step up. Monday, hopefully, we'll make a few announcements from the government side that will change the way we approach this situation, because it has now become a crisis sounding in human life and human well-being. And when we make those announcements and take those drastic measures, we all have to stand together and make sure that we power this country, this economy to spectacular success. And so I'm here to thank BDC, thank the new leadership, thank the new permanent secretary. I think he's also a guy on a mission. I think he made a presentation somewhere yesterday. The people there sent me a message in the middle of the night, as they always do. And they said, you have a very solid guy in that your permanent secretary. I said, oh, wow. Interesting. And that's a good curse. May we all live in interesting times. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you.